The Prime Minister here in Australia is saying, right, he is basically a Democrat. Labor Party here in Australia, they're Democrats, pretty much. He's saying to the Victorian state government, who are also Democrats, what you're doing, taxing electric cars, is illegal. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the channel. This is what I'm talking about. You know what? The more pressure we put on, the more people that watch these videos, the more people that support this movement, the more likely it is that your president, our president, whoever's in charge, gets pushed politically to make the right choice, to make the right decision. Here in Victoria, in Australia, our state premier, Daniel Andrews, has decided to put a tax on electric cars. Now, I personally was criticised quite heavily by people from the BYD ATO owners group for saying that I disagreed with there being a tax on EVs. Now, these people, some of them, not all of them, but some of them seem to think that there should be a tax on electric cars. And don't get me wrong, I mean, maybe if you want to tax them in 10 years' time from now when they're heavily adopted, 5 years even, okay. But now, when we're in the adoption phase, when so few Australians have an electric car, in my view, that is the worst possible time to do things. And fortunately, our Prime Minister agrees. So thank you, Anthony. Great to see that you agree that electric cars, at least at this point in time, should not be taxed. So what is actually going on? Well, the Albanese government, who are our new incumbent government, they just replaced what was basically here in Australia, the Liberal Party is actually essentially the Republican Party. They're sort of similar values, a bit more probably centre, a bit more left wing than the Republicans are, but similar kind of party. They just lost the last election. So they got replaced by what is essentially our Democratic Party. And Anthony Albanese is therefore our new Prime Minister. Now, he wants to quash Victoria's controversial electric and plug-in hybrid vehicle road user charge. By the way, in my recent video, I talked about how that has been increased by 4% this year. Now, they came up with this tax last year. Then they said this year, oh, just quietly, we're increasing the tax on electric vehicles. We're already taxing you. We're increasing the tax. You know, I think now is the wrong time to be doing that. Now, let me know if you agree or disagree in the comment section below. The Age has reported that Attorney General Mark Dreyfus has filed an intervention in the High Court to support two Victorian motorists in their lawsuit against the state government here in Victoria, though he has yet to file submissions. Now, I'm guessing that the federal government here in Australia, kind of like the Joe Biden government, I'm guessing that our Prime Minister is hoping that this will put political pressure on the Victorian state government to pause these taxes on electric cars. A spokesperson told The Age there are potential implications for long-standing constitutional principles in relation to revenue and economic policy. The Commonwealth Government would like to work with Victoria and with the other states and territories on policies relating to electric vehicles, the spokesperson said. We think this is best done through governments working cooperatively. Why is the Victorian government taxing electric cars? Well, the reality is they have a deficit. They spend too much. They don't make enough money in terms of their tax receipts. Well, the reason for this is that Daniel Andrews, who's our Premier, he likes to spend money. And therefore, right now, our roads in Victoria are in a pretty poor state. Therefore, he's thought, well, how can we make more money? We'll tax this, we'll tax that. Electric cars didn't escape his taxation. In Vanderstock versus the state of Victoria, filed last September, the plaintiffs, Kathleen Davies and Chris Vanderstock, argue the Zero and Low Emission Vehicle Distance-Based Charge Act 2021 is unconstitutional, therefore, that makes it illegal. The plaintiffs argue the state government is charging an excise which, under Section 90 of the Constitution in Australia, is the exclusive power of the Commonwealth Parliament. So they're saying that Daniel Andrews is overstepping his boundaries. He doesn't have the power to enforce this tax. Only the federal government has that power. The legal action not only challenges of this particular Victorian Act, but also the rights of states to levy other road taxes and charges, and calls into question the rights of jurisdictions to collect billions of dollars of revenue from motorists. Now, New South Wales and Western Australia came up with a similar kind of tax, but they delayed their road user charges. So they delayed this tax till 2027. Basically, they're saying, let's try and support EVs now for the next 5 years, give them time to become mainstream, and then when they become mainstream, then we can tax them equally in the same sort of way that we tax gasoline-powered vehicles, which I actually don't think is fair, because gasoline-powered vehicles cause massive amounts of problems for our economy. They cause enormous health problems. I mean, the reality is that the particles emitted from exhausts from both diesel and petrol vehicles cause enormous health problems. So I think they're not really factoring in the health costs that come from internal combustion engine vehicles. Now, interestingly, the Attorney Generals from those states I just mentioned in Australia, from other states in Australia, are intervening in proceedings on behalf of Victoria. So basically, the rest of Australia is kind of like ganging up, saying, no, Victoria, this is not cool. The Attorney General for Queensland and Tasmania likewise support Victoria's position. So there's a bit of two sides here. One side says, yes, we should tax EVs. The other side says no. The ZLEV Act levies a charge of 2.6 cents per kilometre for battery and hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles and 2.1 cents per kilometre for plug-in hybrid vehicles, the latter of which are still subject to the fuel excise. That's led to complaints from plug-in hybrid owners that the Victorian government is double dipping or basically taxing them twice, as the reporting process doesn't take into account when a plug-in hybrid is driving under pure electric power. They'd be right. I mean, I don't particularly care if taxes are levied on plug-in hybrids or whatever, in my view, but they're right that they're being taxed twice. Before the bill came law, a list of 25 car makers, rideshare firms, environment groups, and charging infrastructure providers, including Hyundai, Volkswagen, Uber, and Tritium, penned an open letter calling it the worst electric vehicle policy in the world. The legislation also controversially specifies the road user charge applies even when travelling along highways outside of Victoria. So basically, the Victorian government is trying to make money from its constituents, from the people who live in Victoria, even when they drive a vehicle which is not being driven in Victoria. That'd be like driving a car in America and the Victorian government says, we're going to tax you. As long as you're a resident of Victoria, we're going to tax you. If you drive it in Africa, we don't care where it's being driven. We're going to tax you. I mean, Victoria has no rights whatsoever to tax its citizens when they drive a vehicle outside of Victoria. That's my take on that. I think that's insane. But hey, maybe I'm missing something. So let me know if I am in the comment section below. Now, Car Expert, is a really good website, by the way, in Australia, I'll put a link in the description below to their website, says that the increasing uptake of electric vehicles and the various state governments' introduction of road user charges threatens to remove a significant funding source of the Australian government. Fuel excise revenue, which is collected by the federal government, has been declining over the years as Australians have switched to more fuel-efficient vehicles, and this year it will collect considerably less. The fuel excise was 44.2 cents per litre of fuel until it was temporarily slashed in half by the previous government as a result of the incredibly high fuel prices. It'll return to that amount when the excise cut ends on the 28th of September, with the cut expected to result in around a $3 billion lost revenue here in Australia. So right now, our government, unfortunately, our new government who support electric cars, are still basically giving people money to drive a petrol-powered vehicle or a gas-powered vehicle. Now, I understand they're trying to support the economy, but personally, I think they'd be better off supporting the adoption of electric cars by removing that fuel cut. So how about take the money away from internal combustion engine vehicles, because they're subsidizing internal combustion engine vehicles right now by removing the tax on them, on fuel. Take that money away, put it into building new charging networks for EVs. That's my idea. That's what I think should happen. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for supporting the channel. Bye-bye.